IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. As we head into week 4 of lockdown, we're doing our best to make sure that we maintain our schedules and try and get you as many of the podcasts that you're used to listening as we possibly can, but beg your indulgence if there are any slippages in schedules and times. With that, let's just get on with your show.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This week we look back with a very special guest at Indian captains from the 1990s onwards. Now initially we thought that this would be just one episode where we cover all the captains, but of course the conversation went on a little longer than expected, so we've had to split it across 2 episodes. So this week we will look at the captaincies of Azharuddin, Sachin Tendulkar, Sourav Ganguly and Rahul Dravid. And the week after that, of course, we will look at the captaincies of Kumble, MS Dhoni and Virat Kohli. So guys, enjoy this week's episode and stay safe and keep listening. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. And this is an extremely special episode as we are delighted to be joined by an esteemed writer and author, a legend of cricket writing, really. I mean, he's been around ever since we were kids. He's been at the Hindu for 34 years and has recently retired. It is none other than Mr. Vijay Lokapally. Vijay, delighted to have you on the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Same here, DJ. Same here. Very, very delighted to be speaking to you.
How is retirement treating you? I mean, it's not been that long. It's been a couple of weeks. Have you felt a little bit of a difference in how things are? I mean, the lockdown, of course, is affected and everything slowed down. But how are you dealing with retirement?
Well, it's a different feeling, yes. And the family is happy because they can have me. They can see more of me in the house than traveling around the cricket grounds. And but of course, I do miss going to office. I do miss meeting colleagues and seeing cricketers or cricket games at the ground, at least until the lockdown is there. But it is a different feeling. But let me tell you, DJ, I'm very thankful to the Hindu and the Sportstar because they've allowed me to keep writing. And almost every day I've been contributing to the Sportstar Live, which is a superb sports website.
That's absolutely amazing. And let us congratulate you on what has been a fabulous career. I mean, it has been an incredible career. Sportstar and the Hindu has been such a part of our lives. I mean, growing up, I remember it was 10 rupees a week. And my mum used to buy it for us every week. And I used to read it cover to cover. I had all the posters. And the one thing I remember, Vijay, is I think it was May 1998, I'd gone away to Delhi to meet my grandparents. I used to live in Hyderabad then. I'd gone away to Delhi and I was a huge Rahul Dravid fan. Okay. Huge. I mean, it was crazy. And that was the month in which the Rahul Dravid poster came out.
Yes.
And of course, my mum had not bought the Sportstar that month. And I came back from Delhi hoping that the Rahul Dravid poster was there. And of course, she said, I didn't buy it. Why would I buy it? You were not here.
Oh.
And I went looking all over Hyderabad for that Rahul Dravid poster because it was a back issue of the Sportstar.
Oh.
Impossible to get. But yeah, those are my memories of the Sportstar. I, of course, have the 40th anniversary version as well, which my dad got for me very, very kindly. He got it in 2019, last year.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How was the Sportstar? Did you go from the Hindu to the Sportstar, or did you dabble in both?
No. First of all, I want to know, did you get that poster or not then, the Rahul Dravid poster?
I haven't still got that poster, and I still remember there were my friends who had it and would tease me, showing me the poster. It was not even the greatest picture of Mr. Dravid. Okay. I think it was in a background of flowers.
Oh, okay.
Quite a funny one, but I never did get that poster. But huge fan. I did meet Rahul Dravid that year, so that made up a little bit for it. It was great. He was playing a Ranji Trophy match in Hyderabad, Karnataka versus Hyderabad. And I met Mr. Kumble, I met Sujit Somasundar, Sunil Joshi, Javagal Srinath.
Nice.
And of course, Rahul Dravid.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Dravid is a dear friend. In fact, I'm so happy you keep mentioning Hyderabad at the beginning of this podcast because I live in Delhi, but my hometown is Hyderabad.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
is it? So I played at the Gymkhana grounds for many years. And VVS Lakshman was, of course, a senior of ours. He used to he was always doing fitness at the Gymkhana ground, and
Great.
very, very good memories from them.
Yes. I have very, very fond memories of Hyderabad, Lakshman, Jaisimha, Azharuddin, and Venkatapati Raju, of course, who is one of my very, very close friends from all my cricket travels.
So, of course, we're going on a tangent again, but Mr. Raju was from my school, actually. It was the Hyderabad Public School, and every left-arm spinner that ever came out of HPS was called Chota Raju.
Yes. In fact, I have
and
quite
he used to actually... Yeah, he used to actually go past me when I was waiting for a bus to go to school. He had his scooter and he used to go to the Gymkhana. I used to live in Sikandrabad, so he used to go past me to the Gymkhana ground while I was waiting for a bus to go to school. So
I'm going to tell him this today.
Please do. I'm sure he does not remember a 13-year-old boy who used to wave from a bus stop, but I clearly remember him very well.
Yes, he'll also remember he going on scooter to the school. So.
Very good. So, sir, did you you started at the Hindu in 1986, if I'm not wrong?
Yes.
1 year after I was born. And I mean, you've spoken to the 81 All Out podcast in great detail about how you got your break into journalism and all of that stuff.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about your work at the Hindu and how you dabbled in both Sportstar as well as the Hindu itself.
Those days, Sportstar wasn't a different entity. It was part of the Hindu group. There was the Hindu, the Sportstar, and the Frontline magazine, which is both the magazines are still there. And Sportstar, of course, is now it's not a weekly anymore, but it's because of the demands of times where people's reading habits have gone down. But at the Hindu, you had to work for the Hindu and the Sportstar, which was a weekly magazine, and it was a wonderful opportunity because, DJ, let me tell you, when you write for the paper, you have to remember that it's basically for next day reading, right? What you write will be read the next day. But in Sportstar, you have to do feature writing. So that writing was again different. You had to bring out different aspects of sport, whether it was cricket or swimming or football or hockey or athletics. It helped us. It helped many of us from that generation improve our writing. We could write match reports, we could do features, we could do interviews, long form interviews in the Sportstar those days. It was such a wonderful platform to to understand and study not just the sport, the subject. I mean, if I have to interview, say, Dilip Vengsarkar, I would have had to do a lot of research on him and then go prepared before I did those interviews because our sports editor was very demanding. He would not appreciate if you laxity in your work. And writing for the Hindu and Sportstar, and then we used to have a Saturday sports special page every Saturday where a 4-page pull-out. You could write again a lot of features there, interviews and special stories. So it helped us become complete sports journalists. I mean, not just reporters. You were a reporter when you were writing for the Hindu. When you were writing for the Sportstar, you would become a feature writer. So it helped us grow in the industry, in the sporting fraternity.
Very interesting. And I mean, it's of course something we struggle with because we typically release once a week. And when there are matches ongoing, we can cover matches up until the Sunday when we record. But it's only until the next Monday that we're going to release the next episode. So, and now, of course, with the lockdown and no live cricket, we're doing a lot of features. But the other very interesting thing you brought up there, Vijay, is preparation, right? And of course, that was an era where you had to prepare for everything. You said your editor was very, very keen that you prepare and make sure that you prepare. And so while I was researching for this podcast, I was trying to put together topics and things we could talk about. I, of course, went through the 2.5-hour podcast you've done with the 81 All Out podcast, which was amazing. So I would recommend anybody listen to that. But they've covered a lot of topics over there, including how you got your break. Then I thought maybe we can talk about your top 5 memories, but then there's an article which covers that as well, an interview with you. Mm-hmm. So last night, I was actually struggling with what new angle I can come up with because, I mean, you've obviously worked for so long and lots of people have spoken to you. But I thought actually captaincy is something that we don't discuss as much as maybe we should. And in India, from the 90s onwards. I mean, Azharuddin was the first captain that I obviously grew up with. He was the captain we saw captaining India in the early 90s when I started watching cricket. So I thought it would be amazing to speak to you about the evolution of Indian captaincy and your thoughts and maybe some anecdotes about your interactions with these captains and how things have changed over the years, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. So that is actually the topic I'd like to cover on this podcast, Vijay, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and before we launch into our very interesting discussion, you just wanted to know something about preparation, right? And among the list of captains, at number 4 we have Lala Amarnath. So
yep.
I had a very interesting anecdote I would like to share with you of Lala Amarnath. Before joining the Hindu, I was working for a newspaper called The Patriot for 4 years. And the sports editor once said to me that, okay, it'll be nice if you can go and interview Lala Amarnath. So he put in a word. I went to Lalaji's house, and my sports editor told me that you have to ask him one question on Sunil Gavaskar, whether he should be the captain or not, whether he should give up captaincy to concentrate on his batting. So very stupidly, I asked, that was the first question I asked Lalaji. And he just said, interview is over, you may go now. And
oh wow!
Oh yes, I said. I mean, this was not a good start. So I said, sir, I think it's up to you. Please don't answer. He says, no, the interview is over. You may go now. So I came back. I told the sports editor, Mr. PVR Menon, I said, sir, he just asked me to leave because of this Gavaskar question. He says, who asked you to ask this question in the beginning? This should have been the last question of the interview. So then again he spoke to Lalaji. I went back again to his house and I told Lalaji, I said, sir, I'm very sorry. And this question was not from me, it was from the sports editor. So he said, sit. And he gave me a fantastic interview because I had gone prepared. I was prepared with my questions, with a lot of background reading. And from that day, I became one of his favorite students. And Lalaji had innumerable interactions. Later on, when I joined the Hindu, he would come to the Hindu office. He was living across the road in front of the Hindu office in INS building at Rafi Marg in Delhi. Every second day he would come over to our office and interact because my senior colleague KP Mohan was very, very dear friend of Lala Amarnath. And I was very, very friendly with Mohinder Amarnath, Surinder Amarnath, Rajendra Amarnath. So there, of course, I mean, my relationship with Lalaji grew. But this was the introduction. I was asked to leave by Lalaji because of my poor preparation of how to take an interview.
Oh wow! I'm now feeling quite stressed about all of this.
No. No. I wanted to share this because you have to be prepared. I don't know how to explain it. You unless you know the subject and unless you understand the person, it is very difficult to get the best out of him. Very, very difficult. So if you know someone like I've known most of these legends from Indian cricket, I've known them very well. So I'm very comfortable when I speak to them. And there are times when they may not like it. We can leave those questions out. And but essentially what matters is you should know the person if you really want to get a good interview.
And that's an absolutely fantastic anecdote. And I mean, it's almost like doing nets before doing a match. I mean, you want to prepare before the match because failing to prepare is preparing to fail, isn't it? That's what they say.
True, very true, very true. You've said it beautifully. It's like the net session before a match. It is very important.
Absolutely.
Nets will always will help you get rid of a lot of flaws before the game. So
yeah. Absolutely. Even the greats like Kohli did do net sessions, right? So even Viru does net sessions.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very difficult to drive them out of the nets before the game, because they're so obsessed with perfection. Of course, not Viru was somebody who enjoyed his cricket. But someone like Kohli, someone like Rahul Dravid, my God, VVS Lakshman and Navjot Sidhu, he would refuse to leave the nets. He would want to go on and on, even when the bowlers were tiring. So interesting it was.
Absolutely incredible. So I think we've already got into the anecdotes part of this podcast. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah.
So Vijay, tell us about Azhar. So Azhar, as I said, was my first captain.
Yeah.
I think he got made captain in 1990. He was a fantastic batsman, of course.
Yeah.
Wrists of steel and 300s straight after debut, and incredible batsman. I mean, just remembering him taking apart Lance Klusner a couple of times, once at Eden and I think once at Cape Town. I mean, in that white helmet of his with his slightly crooked stance. I mean, just amazing batsman. Could take a ball from outside off stump and whip it to leg stump. I mean, just incredible. But as a captain, and we're going through the test captains of India 1990s onwards.
Yeah.
What was the context of him taking on the captaincy? I mean, we'd had a few changes. We'd had Shastri, we'd had Shrikant, we'd had Venkateswarlu. Of course, Kapil Dev was a long-term captain. And then there were a few changes. And then Azharuddin was captain for a substantial period of time. So how did you rate him as a captain amongst all the others that had come before?
See, I think captaincy, to tell you the truth, he never had dreamt. Right? There are some who do dream, who look at becoming the captain, but not Azhar. I mean, he was, as we have read it so many times, in Child of Destiny, and how Sachin Tendulkar, as president, he wanted to, he was chairman selection committee for the tour to Pakistan, and he wanted a new team for the 90s, a team for the 90s. He wanted a young captain, and he seemed to ask Azhar, Mia, Kaptan banoge? So even as Azhar has said it so many times, he didn't realize the impact of what he was saying. So he just smiled and in his typical way, and which Mr. Tendulkar took it as yes. And there we had Azharuddin leading a team of stalwarts, and he, like I would say, like Kapil Dev, he led by instinct. He would not impose himself on the players. He was always very, very receptive. I have seen it myself when he was the captain and Sachin was such an enthusiastic guy on the field. There were occasions when Sachin would be setting the field as if he was leading the team because he was so engrossed, so involved in his cricket, and Azhar would never mind. I mean, he would just stand there and allow Sachin to become the captain for a while. And Azhar again was one captain who accommodated the bowlers. He was willing to give the bowler the field he wanted. Very rarely he imposed his opinion that, okay, you have to bowl to this field which I am giving you. You have to stick to an offside line of attack or a pad line attack. So Azhar was one. He was a very friendly person. He loved being a player's captain, which was something new those days. I mean, if you see, Kapil was there again because Kapil would excel as an individual, so he would carry that charm to his captaincy. And the same applied to Azhar. He was such a brilliant batsman that you wouldn't mind excusing his flaws as a captain because he would make it up with this sensational batting in the middle. So Azhar, to me, he was not a very thinking captain in the sense that he would not he would not ponder over what he's supposed to do next day and sort of get anxious or excited or worrying, brooding what will happen. He would go to the field and take things as they would come. And he was lucky that he had a team of very, very talented, very gifted players. He had a good bowling attack. He had someone like Sachin Tendulkar who was just coming up, making a lot of impact in world cricket. And initially, he also had Mr. Ajit Wadekar, who was like a father figure. He was a coach, manager, everything. He was the guiding spirit. So Azhar, I think, gained a lot because of the guidance from Mr. Wadekar. In later years, yes, he had different coaches to deal with. But I think Wadekar, he was lucky to have the Wadekar influence in the beginning. After Bishan Bedi, sir had been the coach in New Zealand and England tours. But Wadekar had a big influence, like I said, and Azhar was a friendly captain. I mean, the player could go up to him and confide in him, and Azhar would accommodate. So I would say he was one of the if not the finest, he was one of the best captains Indian cricket has seen.
So a light touch captain, if I can put it that way, not interfering too much, not overbearing, and not trying to impose his will on the game. But the one thing that stood out for me, and I was watching this game recently, was I think it's a game in Australia which we tied. And it's Sachin Tendulkar against the West Indies. Sachin bowling the last over against the West Indies. And he is the one who takes the catch to tie the game. I think he's a third slip maybe. But to have that presence of mind to have 3 slips in, I thought, as you said, he's somebody who went with his gut feel. And I think it was at the Wacker that Sachin was bowling that last. He was bowling seam up. And the last man edges it to Azhar, and he dives to his left, picks up an absolutely brilliant catch. And that's the game. That's the tied game. But also what you brought up was a very interesting point about Sachin setting his own field. And I remember reading, I think in the 94 series, as probably a 9-year-old then, and I remember reading in, maybe it was a Telegraph in Calcutta, about how there was a test match against the West Indies. This was the Padam series where Jimmy Adams really padded everything away. And it was about how Sachin had taken over captaincy while Azhar was off the field for a few hours. And this was before Sachin had ever become captain. And it was about how Sachin brought in these attacking fields. We grabbed a few wickets, but then when Azhar came back on, the fields were spread again. And that was the starting of the building of the case against Azharuddin and handing over the reins to Sachin as captain. And I felt that was, obviously it was due to happen. It was 96 where Sachin finally got the captaincy. But let's talk a little bit about the passing of that baton, because Azhar actually had a very bad tour of 96 in England. And of course, we lost the World Cup as well. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the handing of the baton between Azhar to Sachin, who was, of course, the golden boy of Indian cricket for so many years and was the heir apparent.
Yeah, I think that was the time when Azhar himself was struggling with his batting form. India was not doing well. And what happens is when you lose a series, the captain has to take the blame. That is the unfortunate part of it, because even though it's a team game, it is often thought that captain has to take the responsibility. So here I would say there was the selectors thought Sachin was ready, because I remember doing this story at the end of the 96 tour to England, where Sachin had been the captain at in the 96. If you remember, I mean from his debut in had come in 96. Sachin's test match debut at the Firozshah Kotla against Australia. But I remember doing a story I did it from the Heathrow airport. We were going to Holland for a 2-match series with the Indian team. And I'd filed a story where Sachin, I asked him, are you ready for captaincy? So he said, yes, I am. And that was the headline the Hindu carried. Sachin said, I'm ready for captaincy, which didn't mean that he was wanting to snatch it away from Azhar, because I had got to know that there was going to be a change, and selectors were thinking of bringing in Sachin. So that became a hit story for me. Sachin saying that, yes, I'm ready to take over captaincy. He was sort of groomed. He was vice captain on some tours. And the incident which I told you was where I saw not once, but many times, Sachin setting a field not just for himself, for the bowler, even though Azhar would be there as standing in the slips, or maybe, at sometimes at mid-off or mid-on, whenever he wanted to change his fielding positions. But Azhar never he never liked interfering. He allowed Sachin to prosper, and he liked it also. Because he liked Sachin doing all this. He loved his enthusiasm. And that's how I think Sachin also grew and went on to become a captain.
And so there was also, I remember in 96, there was some personal issues with Azhar. There was, of course, the Sangeeta Bijlani situation that was developing back then as well. So all of this kind of came together eventually to see him being removed as captain and Sachin Tendulkar being installed as captain. Now, of course, being the golden boy of Indian cricket, he was only, 23 when he was captain. He won the first test match, as you said, at Delhi against Australia. Yes. The one-off test match. We won the Titan Cup under Sachin's captaincy. That was an incredible achievement, given we were beat Australia as well as South Africa to win that Titan Cup. And then we went to South Africa.
Yes.
With Sachin as captain, of course. And I think it was December, January, and of course you would have covered that tour. But how did South Africa and the West Indies tour that followed that, I think straight after, how did that change Sachin as a person and maybe change him as a captain? Because until then, he'd only ever tasted success. And there's a lot of talk about how Sachin expected the rest of the team to perform like himself. And that's what was his downfall as a captain. So some insights into Sachin, the captain, perhaps.
Yeah, you have said it beautifully that, he expected them to perform. See, what happens is, if you remember Javed Miandad as a coach, Kapil Dev as a coach, they did not succeed because what came easily to them was very, very difficult for the others. I mean, it was easy for Kapil to say, come on, pitch it up. But Srinath and Venkatesh Prasad would struggle to pitch the ball up because that was very easy for Kapil. And similarly, same would apply for Javed Miandad, who could do anything whenever he wanted with the bat, but he couldn't. The young batsman when he was the coach, would find it impossible. So here Sachin was so involved, so what should I say? I mean, his mind was only focused on the team doing well because he was convinced he had the team to beat the world. He had the confidence in himself and the players which he had, the bowling attack which the Indian team could feel proud of. But somehow there was this extra effort which was missing, which makes the difference, between a defeat and a victory. So for Sachin, it became increasingly difficult to accept that despite his contribution, despite a couple of other batsmen doing well, the team wasn't faring as he would have expected. And being, if you see his caliber, Sachin's dedication to the game, he found it very difficult to accept that the team was not winning. And even if they had ended up with draws, fine, but losing was unacceptable to him. And then he thought sometimes that the effort was lacking. He would make it known to the players. I remember the 1997 tour. I can never ever forget. The team had lost a one-day match from a winning position at St. Vincent. And evening when I went for captain's comment, I realized that he had given the team a dressing down, and they were all hiding from him. And I was told by one of the players that try and avoid meeting him because he's in a very foul mood. But that was not Sachin. I mean, he was an understanding captain again. He did understand, and then he realized that I think he realized that it would be better off. He would be better off without the responsibilities, the shackles of captaincy, where he had to not only think for himself, he had to think for 14 others in the team. So it was taking a toll on his batting, it was taking a toll on his preparation, and probably he felt that some of the players were not taking it as seriously as they should have. They were not contributing as seriously as they should have. So I think it all boiled down to a very difficult decision for him to give up the captaincy and just play purely as a batsman, where there was no pressure on him. And if there was any pressure, it was to make a winning contribution to the team.
Absolutely. And of course, there was there were lots of cases of so near yet so far. Of course, Johannesburg, we were thwarted by bad light and Daryl Cunningham. The Bridgetown Test, the famous or infamous 81 all-out, chasing 120. The ODI that you just pointed out, I think we were 200 odd for 3 and then collapsed to be 231 all-out. The Port of Spain Test in the same series, the Test series, where I think Sourav Ganguly scored 3 runs in 50 odd balls, and we needed quick runs to put the West Indies under pressure. So it wasn't like he was doing badly. It was just things were not coming together for Sachin, really. But and also you could feel the pressure building on him as a batsman, and that was that, as you said, led to him giving up the captaincy. And of course, Mohammad Azharuddin took over the captaincy again from Sachin, kind of relieving him of that burden and freeing him as a batsman. I mean, the Independence Cup, I think, in Dhaka, the Coca-Cola Cup, I think it may be, where Sachin just re-emerged as a batsman. And as I said, I was a big Dravid fan after the South Africa tour. And this then brought me back to being a Sachin fan because he batted like the Sachin of old again. where he looked like previously had the burden of the world on him. He looked like a young man again in that Independence Cup. And Azharuddin, of course, had taken the captaincy back from him. So that unleashed Sachin, the batsman, again, and Azharuddin used that to beat Australia, which I think was one of the greatest performances by Sachin. Azharuddin also led us into the 99 World Cup, and then the captaincy was handed back to Sachin. So, Vijay, what happened there? Why did Sachin get the captaincy back after the 99 World Cup again for those very hard tours down under?
Yeah, see, it was thrust upon him, to tell you the truth. Once again, the selectors wanted, where they felt that Azhar was not as involved in cricketing, in taking decisions. Even if sometimes they expected him to take tough decisions, dropping a player or sending a message across. They wanted him to be more involved, which was not Azhar's nature. Like I said, he once I remember talking to him, and he said locally, "How do you expect me to tell an international player what he's supposed to do? Does he not understand what he's supposed to do? Does not the batsman understand that he's gone in and he can't be playing a shot in the air right in the beginning, right?" So he said, yeah, the player also has to take responsibility when he is playing at this highest level. And that was Azhar's assessment. He wanted them to take the responsibility and not leave everything to the captain, for the captain to come and tell them every time, or tell the bowler every time that you have taken an offside field and you're repeatedly bowling a pad line attack or bowling on the pad. So how do you put a field? How do you set a field to poor bowling? You cannot. Even 22 fielders would not be sufficient. So here again, the selectors thought maybe Sachin, but of course it turned out to be a disastrous tour where the team lost all the 3 test matches. And Sachin, being the passionate cricketer he has always been, he's so passionate that the man doesn't think anything other than cricket. And being a captain, he felt he was under tremendous stress all the time. The expectations from the fans, expectations from the critics, they did appreciate. I mean, there was nothing to point out flaws as far as batting was concerned, but they expected that Sachin as captain would make all the difference. I mean, he would emerge, he would try and become the greatest captain the Indian team has seen, but it didn't happen. It also put needless pressure on Sachin, who there were times when he was not able to play with the freedom that he wanted to, and only because he wanted to set an example that, this is the way you bat. At times it meant compromising his natural effort. But like you said, yes, see how he thrived in Sharjah, where he batted as he had never batted before. I mean, clouting the great Australian bowling attack as if it was a club bowling, a club opposition, So it worked in his favor. It was good for Indian cricket and captaincy. I mean, when Azhar lost the captaincy, he tried to give his best under Sachin's captaincy, and then Sachin got it back. He expected Azhar, and also Azhar did contribute. It wasn't that he wasn't trying, but somehow it was difficult to convince Sachin to carry on with the responsibility, and the loss at home against South Africa convinced him that he was better off playing just purely as a batsman.
Absolutely, and I think it was a 2-0 loss in the Test series against South Africa. I think maybe Paul Harris took a bunch of wickets in that series, and Sourav Ganguly had taken over as the one-day captain already, because the one-day series came after the Test series, and this is really taking me back to my teenage years and the angst that came with the match-fixing scandal, of course, during that series, which resulted in Hansi Cronje being banned and Azhar being banned, and all of that going down, and that from the ashes emerged the phoenix, right? And the phoenix of Indian cricket was Sourav Ganguly, who, after a lot of people had lost faith in cricket, lost interest in cricket, thinking it was all fixed, thinking people were not giving their best. I think a lot of cricketers were very upset as well. Of course, Sachin would have been extremely upset, being the person that he is. And so from all of that kind of trying to wipe the slate clean came the Prince of Calcutta, and he'd obviously emerged in 1996 as with a ton on test debut. He'd been part of the Indian team in 1992 on the tour of Australia, where there were certain things said about him which may or may not be true. But Ganguly as a captain, now, what did he do for Indian cricket after it was at that low point after the match fixing scandal? I'd love to hear about this, because this is something that went on when we were teenagers, and growing up watching the game, it was so disappointing to see our first captain Azhar let the nation down, or the Indian team down in that sense.
I think to me personally, those 5 years when Sourav took over, right up to for the next 5 years, he was there at the helm, and I think after the match fixing scandal, this was very, very crucial that Indian cricket was handed over to somebody who was acceptable to the entire team, who had shown leadership qualities with his approach to batting, the way he batted, the way he took on the responsibility of guiding the innings. So once again, I would give credit to the BCCI for handing the reins of leadership to someone like Ganguly, who when he came into the team, they said he was a quota man. The same was said when he went to England in '96, that he came in only because they had to have somebody from his zone, and then he made this amazing debut at Lord's and then never looked back. So for him to become the captain at such a critical time, when the country was reeling, the game had become so unpopular, there was a question of credibility, to be restored, and Sourav was given very, very a job at a very difficult time, and he accepted it. And look at how he carried the team. One was his affable nature. He could get along with anyone in the squad. He was able to convince them with a smile on his face. And I remember that was the time, and not trying to boast, recently when I retired, he put out a very nice, very touching tweet that when he said that I was fortunate that when I became the captain, he had a friendly bunch of journalists, and he called me the leader of that group. So very kind of him. And I interacted. I used to interact with him so much. And it was a very special relationship I had with Sourav, because he was very respectful to former cricketers. He wanted to learn from them, and you would be surprised. I remember asking him, "Have you studied captaincy? Have you read any books?" He said, "No." It just came to him naturally. And again, he was lucky. And if I had to say that he had some amazing batsmen to support him, like Tendulkar, Dravid, Sehwag, they were Lakshman. What a batsman, Lakshman. And then look at the bowling attack he had. He had the two deadly pair in Kumble and Harbhajan. Then he had Srinath and Venkatesh Prasad and Zahir Khan in later years. So he had the team, but then he was a player's captain. He would always stand up for them. He would back them. He would take on anyone. He would take on anyone to protect his team. That was the greatest quality Sourav had. And I think, to me, he will, after Tiger Pataudi, I've not covered matches when Mr. Pataudi was leading the team. I've always believed what Mr. Bishan Singh Bedi says, that he was the best thing to have happened to Indian cricket. Tiger Pataudi, a great captain, a great human being. After that, I think it was Sourav Ganguly, because we have to give him the entire credit for saving the face of cricket in a country which had been rattled by match fixing scandal, and how he led by example, performed individually at different points to show that he is a leader. And he deserved. If you see, he led in 49 test matches, 2 more than Azhar. And like Sachin and Rahul, of course, 25 matches each, from the stats which you have sent to me. I'm just reading from that. And of course, later years, Dhoni, because there was a more amount of cricket being played, so Dhoni was captain in 60 matches. Virat Kohli, of course, we all know. But Sourav, to me, was a player's captain, a leader, a true leader, who and the players also had a lot of faith in him. They knew that Dada. I mean, look at somebody like Yuvraj. Yuvraj played 48 test matches, very disappointing. But Yuvraj gave his everything on the field for Sourav in the one-day games. So I think Sourav will always be remembered as a player's captain, as a true leader, because he came at a time when the challenge was him to guide Indian cricket out of the rut of match fixing, and he did it beautifully. I remember in the beginning telling me, he said, Vijay, ye aapka team hai, this is your team, please support us. And that made me think, how many players would do that, to come and tell a journalist, please support us. And why? Because he wanted support at such a very, very, what should I say? It was a very delicate thing where the fans had lost faith in the team. From there, he came back. He started winning matches abroad. He had a wonderful partnership with John Wright as the coach. They won matches in the West Indies. They won matches in Australia. In Pakistan. So he was to me, I think, the best captain after Tiger Pataudi.
Incredible. That is such a great thing to hear, because of course Ganguly was. I wanted to ask about 2 or 3 things about Saurav's captaincy. Of course, he brought in the aggression that we're not going to take a step back, which now has been taken to a different level, I think, with Virat. But the fact that Indians were going to look people in the eye and give it back to them, I think that was brought in by Ganguly. And to do that in the context of taking over during the match fixing scandal, giving it back on the Lord's balcony. Even now, I can't imagine anybody else in the world doing that. I just cannot. And it was that NatWest final, as you said, Yuvraj gave everything for him. KF gave everything for him. Zahir Khan was a great player for him. Harbhajan still rates Ganguly as his best ever captain. And that waving of the flag on the Lord's balcony, I just find that incredible. Plus masterminding the 2001 come from behind victory against Australia, keeping Steve Waugh waiting during the toss. There was a slight blip during 2003 World Cup, which we won't talk about because I think that's still very raw for a lot of us. But he exceeded everybody's expectations. Even in 2003, nobody expected India to be in the final. It's only raw for us because we thought India might pull that fairy tale ending and make another 1983 20 years later. It didn't happen, of course. But to take that team and lose to the greatest team that's probably ever played one-day cricket is just an incredible feat by Sourav Ganguly. Now, probably was him hiring Greg Chappell the start of the end? Was that his worst decision as captain?
Of course, yeah. Let me tell you that his T-shirt waving act from the Lord's balcony may have gone down well with some of the young generation, but definitely not. I never appreciated. I did criticize him, and then at a later point, I can share with you, he regretted. Later years, he said, yeah, okay. He got carried away. He would not. If you ask him now, he'll tell you that he wouldn't like to repeat that.
But in his mind, Vijay, wasn't he justifying it, saying that Flintoff had done it at the Wankhede, so I'm going to give it back to them at Lord's?
No, I think I will just, I would love to share my view. See, Flintoff did it because the whole crowd was against Flintoff that day. They were booting, the whole stadium was against Flintoff. So, which was understandable for him to have done that. But at the Lords, the crowd was rooting for India. So there was no question of, that the Indian players were being booed. Nothing like that. The majority of the spectators in the stands were Indian. So Sourav also realized, he got carried away because it was a fantastic win. Maybe, it's very easy for me to say, but maybe if I was there in his position, I may have done the same, taken off my T-shirt and yes. But you were talking about the decision to invite Greg Chappell. He was told by some seniors not to do it, or I don't know for what reason he thought to bring Greg Chappell, but it didn't work out. But today, there'll be players who will tell you off the record that Greg Chappell was very good for Indian cricket. And but there are a lot of players who found Greg Chappell to be cancerous, even though Greg Chappell said Zaheer Khan was cancer, but I think that's what somewhere I had read, that Greg Chappell did not want Zaheer Khan. So Zaheer, Sachin, Lakshman, Sourav, Sehwag, I mean, they all were collective in their opinion. I think that Greg Chappell was not the best thing to have happened. And then Sourav, once he fell out with Greg, probably that was a low point where it appeared that Greg Chappell was in a tearing hurry to get rid of all the seniors. He was after Sachin, he was after Rahul. Not Rahul. Rahul, of course, became captain later. But yes, he was not very keen on Sourav. Greg Chappell, great cricketer, great thinking, great mind. I mean, great cricket student. So he may have had his reasons. I am least qualified to take on Greg Chappell on this subject. But yes, he did not. He did very little to enhance image of India's cricket in the world. Even though you may say that, look how he promoted Dhoni, how he promoted the youngsters in the team who went on to do well. They speak highly of Greg Chappell in private. But Sourav, in case of Sourav, yes, it was a blow to his plans, and he had to make a hurried exit. Maybe he could have played another season or two, but the Chappell era was particularly bad for Sourav.
Absolutely. The other thing that stands out for me is when I read his book, A Century Is Not Enough, when he said he actually went down in secret to Australia before that 2003 tour, where we did so well, 2003, 2004, and he checked out the dimensions of the grounds and how to place fields there. And he went there a few months before the tour, and of course he scored 144 at Brisbane to help us draw that test match and not get off to a losing start to that tour. And it just shows you how much he was committed to the cause of Indian cricket, right? And it was so sad for us to see someone who brought Indian cricket out of the depths of despair, really,
yes,
being treated like that by Greg Chappell, who, I think he still divides opinion across cricketing communities, doesn't he? But of course, the person he got along with very well was the next Indian captain to come up, and that was Rahul Dravid, a fantastic batsman for India, the ultimate team man. He's kept wicket. He's taken a zillion catches. He's even taken test wickets for India, or maybe one-day wickets bowling off spin. So the ultimate team man, very focused on fitness, very focused on technique, practice, and all of that stuff. And I can tell you, having met him in 97 after he's come back from Australia, a very humble person. And of course, you've probably had more interaction. But I remember asking him, how did you play Alan Donald's bowling? Because as a 12-year-old, he was the most terrifying thing you could ever think of. And Dravid just smiled and said, with a bit of luck. And that was, I thought, was a lovely moment. And also, I'd broken my finger, so I couldn't play my first under-13 match. And he said, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." Oh. So I very, very fond memories of him. A perfect gentleman. I had a scrapbook which he signed, which I've unfortunately mislaid. So I went back home to India recently to try and find it. But let's talk about Rahul Dravid, the captain. How do you place him as captain amongst all the others? Of course, I think a lot of people say that he's underrated as a captain. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with you. And he was again very meticulous. He believed in being perfect, and there were not many in the team who could come close to his thinking about the game, his reading of the game. He was driven by an intensity which was rare. If I have to describe the intensity, I mean his commitment to cricket, his commitment to his job. His homework included studying about every individual, not just himself. And again, he was very accessible. So was Sourav. But Rahul he put in a lot of effort to study his own team, to study the opposition, and if you see his record, he's won more matches than he has lost. So it was not that he was not a good captain. He was, because once again, I mean, he had played the game with such devotion and dedication. It may sound cliched, but I think Sourav, as his predecessor, He had also Dravid had that experience, having been the deputy to Sourav, what it feels to be the captain, what it means to become a good captain, and he brought it into play when he took over. So it was I think sad that Rahul did not get to lead in more test matches than he did. I mean, just 25 matches from his illustrious career. Some 140, 144 test matches, whatever. But I think Rahul had it in him. He was a deserving captain. Again, he did get the support of the players fully, and which was a tribute to his character, because they were all willing to give their best. And it was sad. I mean, I would have loved seeing Rahul lead in more test matches than he ultimately did. But yes, he was again an intelligent captain who knew the game very well, who studied the game very well, and he had a very thinking person to support him in Kumble, who was to become captain later. But I mean, it was Indian cricket's misfortune that Rahul could not continue in more test matches as captain than what he did ultimately.
And of course, the reason for him not continuing in captain was not actually related to the test game, but the one-day game with India crashing out of the 2007 World Cup. That was really the end of Rahul Dravid's road as captain. He'd won a series in England, he'd won a series in the West Indies. So it's unfortunate almost that the test game and his test captaincy suffered due to the one-day game and our lack of performance there. But the other person who made captain straight after that, and I know it's someone who's quite close to your heart because you've written an entire book on him, is Virender Sehwag. And if you look down the list, he's captained in 4 test matches, won 2, lost 1. He's got a 50% win rate. And if I remember correctly, one of those test matches was against Bangladesh, where Sehwag said they can't take 20 wickets, and then promptly declared when we were 9 wickets down in the second innings and said they still can't take 20 wickets. So what did you make of Viru as a test captain?
Yeah, that was typical Viru. You know, what can one talk of Viru? Who plays by natural instinct. I mean, somebody who would smash the first ball he faces in a test match, right? So he was a carefree person who loved being what he was. I mean, he did not try to hide his natural feelings, or he did not behave differently just because he had become the captain. I mean, who wouldn't like to lead? But in his case, too short a tenure. I think, again, maybe the selectors thought that his carefree attitude may not be the best thing to inspire the team, which was wrong, because a performing Virender Sehwag on the field would have been the best inspiration for any playing 11. You know, and mind you, he is an amazing student of the game. He reads his reading of the pitch, fantastic. He doesn't need a laptop or a video analyst to find out the flaws in the opposition, a particular batsman, or how to dominate a particular bowler, the strong points of the opposition, the weak points of the opposition. He didn't need a laptop to come to those conclusions. He was a very natural thinker, a very natural cricketer. I mean, who wanted to dominate. So I think a person of his attitude would have served Indian cricket well, because he wanted to dominate. That is one thing which always stood out in his cricket. Somebody who tries to get to a double 100 with a 6, and like he did in Melbourne, and doesn't regret the shot, and then ultimately next year goes on to hit a triple 100 with a 6. So what do you say of such a man? I think he was a wonderful batsman to watch, and whatever little test matches he led, 4 test matches, I think he did a decent job.
And it's a shame my co-podcaster Varun isn't on today, but he is a massive Virender Sehwag fan. He just loved the way he batted. And of course, Virender Sehwag is the only person to have gone to 100, 200 and 300 with a 6. So an incredible record for him. And your book, The Virender Sehwag Story, I mean, you're saying that he's a great talent, but I mean, it also shows the hard work that he's put in to get where he got to eventually, he was from Najafgarh. He went, I think, 35 kilometers every day on a bike with Ashish Nehra. So, incredible story, incredible player. It looks easy from the outside, I think, but the hard work that these guys put in is just absolutely amazing. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more about Virender Sehwag, please do read the Virender Sehwag story by Vijay. And that's all we've got time for this week, guys. So thank you so much for listening. It was a great chat with Vijay as we talked through the captaincies of Azhar, Sachin, Sourav Ganguly and Rahul Dravid, and some really great stories and anecdotes out of there. We've even got some more fantastic stories coming your way next week while we look at Kumble, MS Dhoni, and of course the one and only Virat Kohli. So guys, stay safe. Send us an email, send us a tweet. We're at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, same on Facebook, One Tip One Hand. We're on Instagram. We sometimes go live on there at One Tip One Hand. So yeah, guys, we'll see you next week with the continuation and part 2 of this captaincy special.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about 3 friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my 2 sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha! Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shootball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.